Hey y'all, ooh, no, I don't like that angle. What is going on here? Hey y'all, welcome back to the realm of comics. My name is Ashley and I am here to do 25 comic, manga, and graphic novel recommendations. So this is the second video on the channel, which the channel exists. I'm so happy. If you haven't had the opportunity to check out my introduction video, be sure to check it out. I'll leave the link in the card description above, although you probably are not gonna need it because it's not that much content. But I thought we would kick off the content by doing a good old recommendation video. So if you did not know, I read a lot of comics, graphic novels, and manga, clearly, because here we are, this channel, we're here. And so I thought that I would make a list of 25. Now, I have done this before on my other channel where I talk a lot about beginner recommendations, where you can start. And people always ask me, where should I start, with Marvel and DC? And that's always the biggest question. One day, now that this channel exists, one day I will get there. However, I thought today I would just give out some recommendations of comics, graphic novels, and manga that I have loved through my time reading. This is nowhere near the amount that I have read, and I had to cut it down to 25 recommendations because this video was going to end up being extremely excessive and very, very long to edit. And also, editing me is not going to be happy about the fact that I am choosing not to hold up any of the books. I do own some of these, but I'm just going to be inserting the image covers over on this side of the screen. So yeah, and I will be sure to leave the actual recommendations, the list. I don't know why I couldn't get that out. The list of books, the list of freaking books down in the description box below. I do have my phone with me because my handy dandy list is here. I am giving less manga recommendations than I am graphic novel and comic recommendations. I am still navigating and learning my way through manga. Thank you to Shae and Izzy for constantly being my guiding lights and beacons through this process. I appreciate you both. So I have 3 that I'm going to give, but my area of comfort and a little bit more expertise is going to be in the comic and graphic novel area. And plus, you know, it's where I thrive. It's where I thrive. All right, I'm done. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first one that I'm going to recommend is an old title that a lot of you are familiar with. If you are not new here, you probably have heard me talk about this book a lot, or this series a lot, and that is Kanna by Ai Yazawa. It is one of my favorite manga series of all time that is possibly going to change as I read more manga, but this one particularly just holds a special place in my heart because I started off reading manga by picking up 2 series, and they were Food Wars and Kanna. Those were my 2 loves. That's how I first started reading manga, and so I always recommend Kanna. Food Wars is a little more, you know, it's a little special group of people for that one. But Kanna follows 2 young women by the name of Kanna, and they are both moving to Tokyo, and they have very different personalities, but there is a love and a friendship between them that is absolutely beautiful. Slice of life elements where we're just following them through their journeys, through their relationships, through their ups and downs. It is phenomenal. Unfortunately, this series is on hiatus. It has been on hiatus, I believe, since 2009, so it is not complete. It sucks that it's not complete. So just know, 21 volumes, and you're not going to get anything else. So it may make you a little hesitant to pick it up, but I promise you both the anime and the manga are definitely worth checking out. One of my faves. Love it, love it, love it. The next one that I have on my list is actually a recent fave that I just started reading. I haven't finished the series yet, but this is a shorter series if you're looking for something smaller to kind of dig your feet into and not have to worry about reading an excessive amount of volume, and that is Days on Fez. And Days on Fez was created by Kanata Oka, and this follows another group of women, 2 young women who love music festivals. This is also very slice of life. We literally literally follow them as they go to different music festivals and learn different things about music, how festivals are written, whether it is a facility where you have these big stages or whether it takes place in like kind of like a city setting. I have really enjoyed it. It's kind of like a comfort read for me. I don't know why it became a comfort read, but I really just randomly picked it up and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really enjoying this. I have read, I believe, 3 volumes of the series, 2 more to go. I actually returned volume 4 and 5 to the library because I wanted to get my own set to add to my collection. So if you're looking for a short series, slice of life, you're into music or you're into learning more about music, Days on Fez is a series that you are going to want to look into. The last manga recommendation that I have is Seaside Stranger, and this is by Kanna. I believe that this one is still ongoing. I'm not sure how many volumes are currently out. This is another one that I randomly picked up from my library and I absolutely fell in love with it. This is a BL manga. If you are not familiar with the terminology, BL stands for boy love. So we have 2 men at the center of the story and they are each other's love interests. The story starts off pretty interestingly. We have a main character who is living at the seaside. He is living with his family and I believe it's his aunt at the time because he does come out as gay. His family is not necessarily accepting of it, so he decides to move. He ends up meeting this other guy who sits by the sea and he is interested in him, but the other guy decides that he's going to leave the sea and go further inland to continue to go to school. They never really get to get their romance going, so he ends up coming back and he's like, you know what, actually I'm ready now. I'm older, I finished school, let's get this romance starting. And the other guy is like, that's not how this situation works. What I love about the series is that it's very true to relationship dynamics. It's not something that is cute and fluffy. It has cute and fluffy moments, but at the same time it gets into the nitty-gritty ups and downs of their relationship, and it just felt really, really real every time I picked up a volume. This does have some explicit sex scenes on page, so if you're not comfortable with that, I definitely will take that into consideration when you or if you decide to pick this up. This is probably going to become one of my favorite BL series. I actually returned my copies of Seaside Stranger to the library as well because this is another series that I plan to pick up and collect. Okay, so let's dive into the comics and graphic novels. We have 22 of these to go through. I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible and give you as thorough of a description as I can without making this video excessively long. So the first one that we have here is Stray Dogs. So Stray Dogs was created by Tony Fleecs and Trish Forsnter. I'm probably butchering their last name, but this is a interesting comic series that was coming out. I decided not to follow it issue by issue, but I'd seen a lot of people on the comic side of YouTube really talking about it and picking it up. It looks like it's going to be a cute kind of story that follows animals. Everything is through their perspective, specifically dogs here. Clearly it's called Stray Dogs, but it's actually more dark and more sinister. There are a couple content warnings for this one. If you are bothered by the harm of animals, I do not necessarily recommend picking this one up if it's going to bother you too much. But we have a character, a dog that we're following, who is confused about where they end up. They know that in some way, some shape or form, they possibly had a previous owner, but they end up living with this guy and they have no idea how they got from where they were before to this guy. And they keep saying like, something about the situation isn't weird. I don't feel right about this. And then memories start coming back and we learn more about this human man through the perspective of the dogs, and it's not so great. The next one that I have, I cannot wait to read more from this creator. This is Iyanu, Child of Wonder by Roye Okupe and Godwin Akpan, who's the illustrator. Probably butchered everybody's name on that. I gotta get better with my pronunciations and names. This is a fantasy series that I ended up picking up and it was random. I love the cover. It was solely a cover type of situation for me, and my goodness, this is about a young child who is an outcast but has these magical abilities, and this is a world that's complex, that's set up with different groups who have some interesting interactions with each other and have interesting feelings about this young child that has these specific abilities. I'm intentionally being vague about this one because I knew nothing about it when I went into it. I like completely blind started reading this, and my goodness, the story was phenomenal. By the time I got to the end, I was like, okay, this was good. And so what's interesting is this creator actually got the opportunity to sign with Dark Horse, and they made an agreement. So Dark Horse is putting out all of his works, and from my understanding, I signed up for his newsletter. I believe that a lot of the books take place within the same universe, so we're getting a little bit of interconnectedness with the rest of the books that he does have out, which I'm excited to pick up. They are a phenomenal team of creators behind this project. I cannot wait to dive more into it. The next one that I have is Abbott by Saladin, Ahmed, and Sami, Kivela. And Abbott takes place in the 1970s. It follows this black reporter who ends up documenting something that happens to a young black boy in her city. And so there are a group of people who want her removed from her position. And so she's trying to navigate that. And what's interesting about this is that the writer weaves in some paranormal elements, and it's very, very interesting, and it's really, really closely associated with the death of a previous loved one. And this is a lot darker than what I thought. As a matter of fact, I didn't really know what to expect when I was going into this, but it ended up being a lot darker and a lot more gory than what I anticipated. But the story just is robust and fulfilling, and it tackles so many different complex issues while giving you that paranormal element, which I found so fascinating. There is a spinoff to this called Abbott 1973. I have yet to read that, but I am definitely looking forward to picking it up. The next one on this list is also another one that I randomly picked up. I originally read this on Kindle Unlimited and was pleasantly surprised by what I got into, and that is Joker by Brian Azzarello. I have gotten more into learning more about Joker ever since I started picking up James Tynion's run of the Joker, which technically, like everyone says, is a Commissioner Gordon book. However, this whole idea of Joker being present on every single page, his energy, yes, I should have included this one on the list. However, I'm going to include this one specifically because of the fact that it was unexpected and it is a kind of standalone. You can read it self-contained. This is a reimagining of Joker as if he was a part of a gang. And you literally get to see Joker spiral into madness. There is no understanding him. There is no coming to terms with where this man is in a psychological sense. He is completely out of control. This is another one that is extremely dark. Even the artwork is dark. It takes you down this rough path of Joker. If that cover doesn't do it, I don't know what else will. But if you're interested in Joker as a character and you are interested in reimaginings of him and learning more about where he is in his mental space, I would definitely recommend picking this one up. Next on the list, I have one that's a little bit more lighthearted, and that is Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Volume 1. This was done by Kelly Thompson and illustrated by Veronica Fish, who I absolutely adore. Veronica Fish as an illustrator, there hasn't been a book that she's been a part of that I have not enjoyed artwork wise. This is it's just a story about Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But what's so fascinating about this too is that I don't think I realized how big of a deal Sabrina was to the Archie world, that she is a part of that universe. I don't know why I never made that connection ever, never made that connection, but I just finished Mark Waid's run of Archie this year, so that would explain a lot, and eventually we get to see a little bit more of Sabrina. But this is about her moving to a new town, getting to figure out or learn more about what it's like to balance her life as a witch and just be a normal regular teenager. There are some strange things that start happening to her classmates. It overall was just a good, pleasant, fun read. It was lighthearted. I liked it. I enjoyed it. And if you're into the Archie universe and Sabrina, this is one that you should pick up. And if you're into Archie, I'm going to do a small plug here. Mark Waid's run of Archie, it's only 6 volumes. chef's kiss. It is so good. It starts off slow, but by the time you get to volume 6, I was like, oh, this was a good run. I do not recommend Nick Spencer's run, but Mark Waid's run is really, really good. The next one that I want to recommend is one that I don't think I've talked about a lot at all, and clearly not on this channel because okay, so it is The Strand Volume 1. This was created by David Lapham and Sierra Hahn and Mike Huddleston, and The Strand is a reimagining of vampire lore. Now this is really interesting because I can't remember how the order of what came out when. So I knew about The Strand because I used to work with someone at the library, a patron who was really, really interested in the TV show. But there's also a set of books. So I can't remember if the books came first and the TV show, then the comic, or the comic, then the TV show, then the books. I don't know. But there's 3 different mediums of this whole entire thing. I know that it's very, very difficult to recreate vampire lore. It feels like, you know, we've been doing this for centuries. Everybody does vampire lore. However, this is a little different. It starts off weird. It's about a missing airplane, right? It flies back into JFK, just randomly shows back up, and everyone on the plane appears to be dead. But there's no sign of struggle, there's no blood, there's no toxicity in their system, not like absolutely nothing. There's nothing, nada. So it's confusing. And then shit hits the fan, as it would. And I think what I enjoyed about this one so much is like just the realness and the grittiness of the characters. This is another one that if you're not a fan of violence and gore on page, it might not be your thing, but I will say, like, if you want something that's a little different than what we typically see with vampires, honey, like, this was it. This was it. The next one I have is Ice Cream Man by W. Maxwell Prince. So this series is still ongoing. They still have issues coming out, I believe once a month. Ice Cream Man is for all of the horror fans out there, okay? If you like horror, I think you'll like Ice Cream Man. Ice Cream Man is a horror anthology, so each issue stands on its own, and the connecting factor between these is the Ice Cream Man, who seems to be this evil entity, and each story has a lesson at its core. There's one I'll share with you where you have a couple, they're both drug addicts, and so they decide they're gonna get their money and do one last hit, and she goes out and she tries to make money in order to get their last fix, and she goes back and essentially the Ice Cream Man pops up and is like, you know, I will give you this last hit, like, you know, and she knows that her partner is also struggling, wanting to also be able to take drugs, and she's selfish and she takes it herself and ends up dying. And so there's a lesson to be learned woven into that, and so they're like small vignettes like that. I think it works very well. The first volume, it took me a kind of like a little bit to get into it, but the subsequent volumes that I ended up reading, I did enjoy. I need to pick this back up. I want to get the collection, the hardcover collection that just came out. I think it's called like Ice Cream Sunday, something like that. It's beautiful, gorgeous. I want it. The next one that I have is great for the spooky season. So October is coming up. A lot of these are actually going to be really, really good for the spooky season. So definitely check these out. It is A Spell on Wheels Volume 1. This was created by Kate Leth, and Megan Levens is the illustrator on this one. So this focuses on a group of 3 witches who end up losing their magical items, and so they have to go and retrieve these magical items. This definitely focuses a lot not only on the paranormal elements, but also character building, how these 3 interact with each other, their strengths and their weaknesses. I liked how they had to work with each other and depend upon each other in order to get their magical items back. I recently read volume 2 of this series and really enjoyed it. To my knowledge, I don't think there's going to be any more, so if you're looking for a short series to check out, I would highly recommend this one. The next one that I have is actually a DC book, another DC book, because I've mentioned DC books on here, and this is Bombshells Volume 1 Enlisted, and this is by Marguerite Bennett and Marguerite Sauvage. I think that's how you say her last name, and this is a reimagining or an alternate World War II story with our women leads or our women superheroes in DC as the leads fighting on the front lines. chef's kiss, y'all. It was so good. I didn't know what to expect going into this one. It's actually been a while since I've read this, but I'm a history nerd buff and I love comics, superheroes. So when you mix the two, it was kind of like heaven in my eyes. It just lit up. I absolutely adored it. So if you're looking for women of DC in terms of their superheroes and you like history, you're interested in World War I, World War II, you will enjoy this one. This one, I believe, probably has about 6 or 7 volumes. I'll have to double check, or someone probably will check behind me in the comments, but I think it has, I think at most 6 volumes, 6 or 7. Somewhere around there. And I have not finished the rest of the series, but I will eventually sometime soon pick up the series again. But I really did enjoy that first volume. The next one that I have is The Beauty. This is 6 volumes right now. I don't know if it's ongoing or if it's finished at 6 volumes. And this is like I said, The Beauty by Jeremy Hahn and Thomas Nachlik. I like these names, y'all. Like, y'all have to have, it's so complicated for me to pronounce names right. But The Beauty is one that I had read years ago. I reread it this year in a vlog that I did on my other channel. This is about an STD that people get that makes them beautiful, and then within a certain period of time they combust, spontaneously just combust. They just explode from the inside out. And so people can't figure out why that's happening, and they're trying to come up with a cure for what is called the beauty, that is a disease. And so it's very intriguing. It's a lot of mystery behind it and a lot of commentary on beauty, and so I definitely need to finish this one. But if you're interested in that premise, hop right on it. Next, I have I Hate Fairyland by Skottie Young. Okay, so funny story behind this one. When I first saw I Hate Fairyland, if you look at that cover, I thought that maybe this was like just like a gritty, like a middle grade graphic novel type of thing. Absolutely not. This is for adults. Don't give this to any child. Please do not give this to any child, okay? Do not give this to any child. It is wild. I Hate Fairyland follows our main character, who is technically like in her 30s, I believe, but she's stuck in the body of a child because when she was a child, she got sucked into Fairyland. And most kids typically like make it out of Fairyland, but for some reason, she just can't. She can't get it together. She can't make it out. She don't know why she can't make it out. She just can't get it together. And she's violent. She's nasty. She's harmful to all of the creatures and characters in Fairyland. And it is absolutely hilarious. The first thing that you see when you open up the trade of this is her standing there with her middle fingers up. Fun, like if you want something that's going to make you laugh out loud from your gut, check out I Hate Fairyland by Skottie Young. The next one that I have on here is Deadly Class, and this was created by Rick Remender and Wes Craig as the illustrator. If you did not know, Deadly Class is a TV show series, and I have not watched a TV show. I'm so hesitant about watching TV shows that are supposed to be adaptations of comics or graphic novels, because sometimes they're a hit, sometimes they're a miss. I've had too many misses, and so I always get hesitant. But Deadly Class is a series that focuses on a group of teens that go to the school to become trained assassins, and they all come from very interesting lineage. This is also another series that's quite on the violent side, but it's been years since I read it. I've read, I believe, volume 1, 2, maybe 3, but it is definitely longer than that. I don't know how many trades are currently out right now, but this is the perfect opportunity to pick it up, check it out, and then maybe check out the TV series. Okay, so the next one that I have is an older title, but it is a oldie but goodie, and this is Bitch Planet, written by Kelly Sue DeConnick and illustrated by Taki Soma. This is almost, I don't know if I would describe it as futuristic, but it is a series that focuses on women who face a horrible, very stringent penal system if they go against the patriarchal system that they are a part of. If they push back against it, they get sent to this other place. And so it's a lot of commentary about women in a patriarchal society. The artwork is gritty. It wasn't what I was expecting going into it. I didn't really, when I read Bitch Planet, I don't think I knew what I was getting into, but the storytelling, the artwork, all of it worked very, very well together. I believe that there are 2 collected editions of this one, and then there's a third one that's kind of like what they call like a triple feature, which is kind of sort of like a spin-off type of thing, but also a short series if you're interested in it. The next one I have is Piece by Piece, and this is by Priya Hook. I'm probably saying that last name wrong. I also read this one for that reading vlog that I did on my channel earlier this year. This is about a main character who has a hijab, and she gets physically assaulted in wearing her hijab. Someone pulls on it, and they actually end up like pulling her hair with it, and it's following her as she deals with that trauma. The artwork in this is so beautiful. It appears to be watercolor. I mean, some of the most beautiful artwork that I have ever seen. The story itself is hard to read because she does have kind of traumatic reoccurrences. Like there's certain things that will trigger her, and she'll kind of flash back to that incident, but she's trying to get her footing, get acclimated to a new school, get comfortable with wearing her hijab and not feeling like she's going to be assaulted or attacked for wearing her hijab. So I love this. This was a random pickup for me. I can't even remember why I picked this one up. I think I just saw the cover one day when I was walking around my library, and I was like, oh, I have to pick this one up just because the artwork kind of called to me, and the storytelling on the inside was just as good. Next, I have Thirsty Mermaids by Kat Lee. This was actually my first Kat Lee book. I ended up reading Snapdragon with Bree during our one of our months that we ended up reading it, and we did a great discussion on that. If you want to hear more about the discussion, I'll link that up in the card symbol above. But this one focuses on 3 mermaids who like to drink. Okay, they love to drink. Thirsty Mermaids. Not what I was expecting when I saw this cover. I was like, oh, Thirsty Mermaids. I like mermaids. You know, this could be cool. And then I realized it was 3 mermaids who just like to drink a lot. And so they drink all the alcohol that they have. And then they realize, oh, maybe we have to go to land and be amongst the humans in order to get more alcohol. So they get this spell. They all get into their new bodies, and they have no idea what they're doing, and it is hilarious. But there are some really like very, very interesting and hard moments in this book. We have a character that is struggling with their body. They have body dysmorphia, so they are comfortable in their mermaid body, but when they get into this human body, they struggle with it a lot, and they have mental illness struggles, and so a lot of that is addressed. And I like the way that all of that was woven into the context of the story. It was just beautifully done. Very, very heartwarming and emotional read. Did not expect that going into it, but it makes sense now after reading Snapdragon that I believe that this creator is very, very good at what they do in terms of writing in a way that's going to tug and pull at those emotions. Next, I have Surviving the City. This is by Tasha Spillett, and Surviving the City is one that I read when I was looking to find more comics and graphic novels written by and illustrated by Indigenous creators, and I found this one. This is a 2-volume series, and they're extremely, extremely thin. This first one focuses on the issue with missing Indigenous women and girls, and so we see our characters kind of work in a world where it's interesting, where we have ancestors who have come before them who are trying to protect them from ending up in that type of situation. We have a character that is navigating their identity. They may be two-spirit. They're not really sure at that point, but they are figuring it out. The artwork was really, really great. I enjoyed it, and I need to acquire both the first and the second volume so that I can reread the first one and continue on to the second volume. The next one that I have is Almost American Girl by Robin Ha. This is about Robin's experience in moving from South Korea to the United States, specifically Alabama, and living with her Korean family, but growing up around Korean cousins who don't have the same experiences as her, which brings forth that conversation of the diaspora and how that impacts communities and families. And so she has a very, very difficult time fitting in. She has some feelings towards her mom about moving them from South Korea to America, specifically Alabama, of course, where she is going to be impacted with a lot of discriminatory behavior. At some point, she does get the opportunity to go back to South Korea, but so many things have changed since her time there. It is a great nonfiction graphic memoir if you're looking to get into nonfiction, but you're not all the way there yet. I always say that nonfiction graphic memoirs are a good place to start and explore that genre. Next, I have Katie the Cat Sitter, and this is by Colleen A.F. Venable. This is not what I was expecting at all. This is a middle grade graphic novel. I don't even want to really tell you too much because part of the surprise about this one is going into it and not realizing what it really is. But in short, the premise is you have Katie who is living with her mom. Her mom is a single mom. She doesn't have as much money as her best friend, and her best friend is going to the sleepaway camp and her mom can't really afford to send her. So Katie makes it her job to pick up small end jobs, save up money so she could at least go to this camp for 1 week. And there is a neighbor that she has that knows that she's trying to find a way to get to this camp. So she tells her, you can come to my house and babysit or cat sit. Babysit. Well, I mean, some people may be babysitting. You can cat sit all of my cats, except this lady has an excessive amount of cats. It's ridiculous. It's a lot of freaking cats, a whole lot of cats. So she decides to go and babysit the cats, and there's a much more interesting plot to it, and I'm not going to say what it is. That's it. I'm not going to say. The next one that I have is Isla to Island by Alexis Castellanos. I believe that's how you say her last name. This follows a young girl, which is it's a fictionalized, but not really, kind of sort of fictionalized retelling of the Peter Pan mission. I forget what the correct term is, when you had kids who were taken from Cuba and they were brought to the United States and they were supposed to be placed with family, or they got placed into foster care systems or adopted by people. So this follows a young girl who is with her family in Cuba, and they decided to, it's called Operation Peter Pan. I don't know why that wasn't going to click. Operation Peter Pan. So her parents reach out, I believe, to a Catholic organization in order to move her from Cuba before Castro fully comes into power, and move her from Cuba to the United States, to Brooklyn, where she is placed with this white couple, and you can tell that she's not comfortable. She doesn't speak the language. And what I loved about this was the artwork, and it was beautiful. So when she's in Cuba, everything is in color. It's bright. When she moves to Brooklyn, everything is grayscale because you could tell that she doesn't fit in. She's confused. When she goes to school, she doesn't know how to really navigate being in that school, and eventually she finds her way, and then things start to brighten up again. I think the artwork just really lends itself to the story. The author does provide some additional information about Operation Peter Pan in the back of the book, which I really did appreciate. Next, we have Shuri and T'Challa Into the Heartlands. This is a middle grade graphic novel. I love what Marvel and DC are doing with getting younger readers into their characters in their series. So this one follows Shuri and T'Challa, and they clearly brother and sister, they don't really get along, and one of Shuri's inventions destroys a sacred site that they have during their soul washing day, which is a ritual that they practice, and so they have to figure out how to clean up all that mess. You learn a lot about the dynamics of Shuri and T'Challa's family and how they're really related, and how much T'Challa is actually struggling because of the fact that first of all, I didn't realize that Shuri and T'Challa shared the same father but not the same mother, and so T'Challa is really struggling because both his mother and his father are no longer present, and so you get to see that kind of play a role. You get to see the relationships between them as brother and sister, and I thought it was great. The artwork was great. This is a great series to start for younger readers that are interested in Black Panther. The next one that I have is The Seance Tea Party, and this is by Rimana Yi, and this follows a young girl who's a little different. She likes paranormal things, and she's struggling because all of her friends are moving on to older kid things, and she still wants to stick to doing the things that they did as kids. So she's having a difficult time with her friendships. So as a result, she ends up befriending a ghost, and you would think that, oh yeah, you know, like this is like Casper, the friendly ghost. It's not like that at all. This is a lot more emotional than I thought, especially when we start learning more about the ghost and what they have been dealing with and how they passed, and the whole idea of memory and letting go and growing up. This is a good one for spooky season as well, but just know that it's a little bit more hard-hitting than the cover and the description lends itself to. And the last one that I have for y'all today is The Legend of Auntie Po by Shing Ying Kaur. This was one that I had my eye on for a minute. This is another middle grade graphic novel that follows a young girl that lives on this log, I guess it's a log camp where they cut logs with her father, and they are both Asian. And so it takes place in the 1800s, and we learn a lot about how the Asian community, specifically in this one, we're looking at the Chinese community, how they were treated when they were out west working in these logging camps. There's a lot of history in this. There is a great author's note that really talks about the inspiration behind this. So if you could tell from the cover, you would know that this is kind of reminiscent of Paul Bunyan and his Blue Ox Babe, but clearly this is different. And a lot of this has to do with the power of storytelling and who gets to tell what stories, and how these stories connect to those of us who have different experiences. And so we get to see flashes of that in this graphic novel. So well done. There is a part also of the author's note where there is kind of this discussion about the role of indigenous communities and how the author did not feel that it was appropriate to tell their story for them, which I appreciate because it brings forth that deeper conversation of who has the right to tell these stories and have these communities have the opportunity to tell these stories first. So this was beautifully done. This is another one that looked like it was done in watercolor, which I absolutely, y'all, these artwork and a lot of these, just chef's kiss, so good. But it's amazing. If you're looking for middle grade graphic novels to check out, you don't want to miss this one. All right, y'all. So those are 25 manga, comics, and graphic novels for you to check out. As always, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. I hope you all have enjoyed this and you have found some new recommendations to check out. If you have any recommendations or things based on this list that you think I would enjoy, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be back with another video soon.